Hello, boys and girls. This is Mrs. Brewster again for video number 2. This video is going to be going over the 6 kingdoms. We learned all the kingdoms as the top category for the classification system that Lance came up with. Learned about that in the last video. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen once again, and we are going to continue where we left off. Last video. For today, you should have the 2 other pages for notes. The first one should have been completed with the first video. This one is a little bit more open notes because I don't want you to write all this down. There is quite a bit of information for this. You only need to write down 2 facts about each of these groups and draw a picture about one living thing that belongs in this category. So you're going to have 3 things in each box. You have a box for each kingdom in your notes. And if you are doing your own notes, because you weren't able to print off the notes, that's no problem. Just go ahead and make a box and label each box with one of these. The first one, archaea, bacteria, protists, fungi, animals, and plants. That's the order we're going to go through them. We're going to spend more time on the first 4, a little less time on the second 2, because you know those really well. We've already gone over animal and plant cells. So we're going to spend more time on the other 4. Some of these you've probably never heard about, which is exciting, new stuff. So make sure you're ready before you continue in the video. If you need to pause, pause now and get your notes. If not, let's continue. Starting with archaea. Archaea are one-celled organisms. As you can see from these pictures, you can use any of these 4 pictures as your picture, your drawing for your notes. Really, it's just one cell, one oblong or circle or ring cell. And then all archaea are just one cell. That's the first thing we're going to learn about archaea. They are called microorganisms, a living thing too small to be seen by the human eye. All archaea are microorganisms because they are all made of one cell. They are not multicellular. Isn't that amazing that just one cell is enough to make something a living thing, something that's able to consume, reproduce, and get rid of waste, something that's alive. That's amazing. Every cell is alive, even if it's just one cell. The interesting things about these cells is they are prokaryotic. They do not have a nucleus like animal and plant cells. So they do have DNA, because living things do need to have DNA. That's like the brain that tells the cell how to make itself. But this DNA is in plasmids, or rings, inside of the cell. They do also have cytoplasm, ribosomes, and other parts of a cell. They just don't have the nucleus. Instead, they have something called plasmids. So that's cool. Archaea are everywhere. They can be found in all sorts of places. As far as we know, there are no known harmful species So we don't actually know very much about them, because if it doesn't hurt us and it doesn't benefit us, we tend not to study it as scientists. So not much studying has been done on archaea. They are probably the least known of the of the six kingdoms. But they are found in the most random places, everywhere, on your books, in your body, everywhere. But some really cool places are some really extreme places, such as in this far left picture, we have a picture of Yellowstone with the volcanic hot springs. And nothing else can live in this. This can get up to a temperature of 113 degrees Celsius, which would kill pretty much everything else that would try to get. I mean, that's above boiling point. But archaea can survive in there, and there are certain species that would thrive in that. Also, in this underground water cave, not much can live in there, but archaea can. This far right picture is a picture of the Dead Sea, which is so salty. Nothing can live in it. It kills all the fish. But archaea can, certain types of archaea can live in this. There are living things in this water, and they are archaea, the one-celled organisms. Now, different types live in these different types of environments, because there are lots of different species of archaea, just like every other kingdom. Also, they are in your intestines. There are certain methanogens, which is a type of archaea, that live in muds and swamps, and also in your intestines, and they produce methane gas. So they produce the gas that you have. Isn't that funny? That's funny. That's from archaea. You didn't know that, did you? Pretty cool. All right, they used to combine this category with bacteria, but then they separated them because they realized there's some major differences between the DNA and RNA between bacteria and archaea. Like I said, there's no species of archaea we found that are harmful. There definitely are some bacteria species that are harmful, but not all bacteria are harmful. Some are really helpful. Here's some really cool pictures of different types of different types of bacteria. Feel free to use any of these to do your picture on your notes. And then make sure you include 2 facts as well. So like archaea, bacteria are microorganisms. They are invisible to the human eye. We need microscopes to see them because they are one-celled organisms. They are only made up of one cell, and yet they are still a living thing. So cool. They are prokaryotic, which means they have no nucleus, just like archaea. They instead have plasmids that contain their DNA, and they do not have a nucleus that contains their DNA. The DNA is stored in a different way than ours. And some of them with this DNA, bacteria are kind of really interesting in the fact that they can mutate and change their DNA, which keeps scientists and doctors on their toes, because especially some of those more harmful bacteria, they're constantly adapting and growing stronger. So certain antibiotics that used to work for certain types of bacteria are no longer strong enough to fight off those bacteria, and so they have to constantly be coming up with stronger antibiotics and things that can fight these bacterias. So some of those harmful ones would be strep throat, comes from a bacteria, staph infections, or really any type of an infection usually comes from a bacteria. There are fungi infections, and we'll go over those too, but a lot of infections are caused by bacteria. And so usually all you need to do really is, for those, is take some sort of an antibiotic to help your body fight those off. So others are very helpful. Most bacteria are very helpful. There's a lot of bacteria in your gut and your intestines. They help you break down your food so that you can digest it. A lot of people take probiotics, if you've heard of that. That helps the good gut bacteria to grow, and that helps your gut to digest your food, so you don't have as many problems with that, which is good. There are certain types of bacteria that convert nitrogen into plant food, so that's helpful for plants. There's some that contain photosynthesis. They can do photosynthesis, so some types of bacteria have chloroplasts, and they're able to create their own food. A lot of those live in water and provide food for other smaller creatures. There are a few types that are parasitic. They are more rare. And this does not, as a side note, this does not include viruses. Viruses, actually, I know this was a big question for a lot of you guys, because everybody was wondering what those fall into. They have their own group. They're not even technically in a kingdom. Scientists debate on whether viruses are a living thing or not, and most say that they're not. They're just this like capsule of a little bit of DNA, and unless they are actually inside of another cell, they really can't do anything. And so because they don't consume food, they don't do anything like that, they're not considered a living thing. They don't fall into this category of bacteria. They don't fall into any category. They're a whole nother thing. And so we're not going to be going over those today in this video. All right. Protists. The third category for kingdoms of all living things is protists. And protists are kind of like the weird balls. They don't really fit into any other category, so they sort of fit into this category. They're so random. As you can see, we have some really randoms here. We have some one-celled organisms. We have some slime molds. We have some seaweed. Just a lot of random things lots of random things fall into protists. And yes, seaweed is technically a plant. It is a protist. So that's cool. All right, protists are both one-celled organisms. So some of them are one-celled. Others are multicellular, which means some are microorganisms and only have one cell, and others are kind of more like plants or fungi or animals. They're multicellular, they're bigger, which is why this is such a random group. Part of it, you know, they're all sorts of shapes and sizes. These are eukaryotic, so like plants and animals, their cells contain a nucleus, and that's what really sets apart a lot of these guys from both the archaea and bacterial kingdoms. Protists have nucleuses. Their DNA is stored in a nucleus, like plants and animal cells. They're really random. We have three different types of protists. We have animal-like protists, plant-like protists, and fungi-like protists. But for one reason or another, it didn't quite fit into those particular categories. Some of the animal-like protists are these one-celled organisms that do have a nucleus, like an amoeba, a diatom, and just another type of protozoa that has cilia. So you could use any of these pictures for protists, but we'll go across some other really cool ones too. Some of the plant-like protists would be algae, all types of algae, or seaweed. We have green algae, lives in freshwater and on the top of freshwater, and they can produce their own food in chloroplasts, kind of more like plants. And then we have red algae, red seaweed, and then we have brown algae, or kelp. Kelp is probably one of the largest protists. They can get to be quite large. And when you compare them to like those one-celled organisms that also fall into protists, you can see what quite a difference there is between all these different types of protists. It's kind of the catch-all. This is really cool. This is called a sailor's eyeball, but it's not. It's a type of algae. It is just one cell, if you can believe it or not. This is not a multicellular animal or plant. This is one-celled organism. This only has one nucleus inside of it, as well as all the other parts of a cell. And it's called the sailor's eyeball. Pretty cool. Really random. Some of them can get to be up to 5 centimeters across. One of the largest single-celled organisms so far discovered by scientists. They are also known as bubble algae. Just kind of look like little bubbles all over. Really cool. And then we have fungi-like protists. And fungi-like protists are kind of remind us of fungi, but they don't quite fit into the fungi category. They don't really do the same things as what fungi, all other fungi do. So they don't fit in that category. They fit into the protist category. Like I said, it's the catch-all. We have some really weird names here. We got some white finger slime mold. We got some pretzel slime mold, which is really kind of cool looking. And believe it or not, this is called dog vomit slime mold. And I didn't actually look up where these things are located. I don't think they're very common. But yeah, those are another category of protists. Really weird. Most of these things won't actually hurt you. They just did look weird. That's all. You can use any of those pictures too if you'd like to for protists. Okay, fungi. Okay, fungi, mushrooms, truffles, yeast, and molds are all types of fungi or fungi. Either pronunciation is fine. There are a lot of different types of fungi. Some are single-celled and some are multicellular, just like protists. They can be either or. Yeasts would be single-celled, the things that make bread fluffy. And some are multicellular, like a mushroom. They are eukaryotes, which means that their cells have a nucleus, which carries their DNA. They have cell walls like plants, which is why a lot of those slime molds, they didn't really fit into fungi because they didn't have that. So they got excluded. But anything that's in the fungi category is going to have cell walls, just like plants. So they're stationary, they don't move. They kind of look like plants a lot of the time. They are heterotrophs. They don't make their own food, which is why algae is not considered a fungi, because algae can make its own food. But the big thing about fungi is they are heterotrophs. They have to consume their food, which is why all fungi pretty much live off of death and decay. Fungi are what decompose dead materials. They eat dead materials, they decompose it, They allow for things to come back and be made back into soil, which is really cool. A few types of fungi are predatory and parasitic, which means they wouldn't necessarily wait for their organism to die before they start breaking it down and decaying it. Rare, except there is that one athlete's foot is technically a fungi, so that's gross. So if you have athlete's foot, you technically have a fungus on your foot. Gotta get rid of it. And there are a few other types of funguses that are more parasitic and aren't great. All right. They are all, like I said, they all consume deceased or decaying matter and convert it back into soil. They are the recyclers of living things on this planet. Without them, all of the dead would remain gross and they wouldn't go back into the earth and allow new life to begin. So fungi are very important to this planet. They are very helpful. They have a gross job, but they do it well, and we are glad they do it. All right, moving on to animal. We're going to go quickly through these. Animals are multicellular. They have more than one cell. They have no cell walls. They are heterotrophs, which means they consume their food for energy, just like a fungus. An animal has to eat its food, cannot make its own food. And they are eukaryotes. Their cells have nucleuses, which we learned about. All of your models, the cells had nucleuses for animals. Plants, oh, and of course, if you really can come up and draw any animal you want to for your drawing. And same with plants, whatever plant you want to do. I didn't give you examples because you guys know what different types of animals and plants you want to draw. Plants are multicellular as well, just multicellular. There aren't one-celled microscopic organisms that are plants or animals. All plants and animals are multicellular. We can see them with the naked eye. We do not need a microscope. Well, for most of them. And they all have cell walls for plants. They all have the cell membrane surrounded by the cell walls. And chloroplasts. They are autotrophs. They can make their own food in chloroplasts through photosynthesis. They are eukaryotes. They, their cells have a nucleus, as we saw in your models. Go ahead and double check. If you are missing anything in your notes, please go back in the video and find it. You also can just pause the video at a certain point if you want to use one of the pictures for your drawings, or you need to just pause the video for your notes. Go ahead and go back and do that. Otherwise, you should be done. Great job. Please go ahead and do these 3 things. Read pages 34 through 40 in your textbook, in your science textbook. That will go over everything that we just discussed, including taxonomy and the 6 kingdoms. Please take a picture of the notes that you took during this lesson as well as the previous lesson. So that'll be 3 pages that you did, and send the pictures to your teacher so that they can see that you did it. That is everything. I hope you listen. And hope you guys are having a good week. Bye-bye.